Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to have an Islam Makhachev fighter showcase. On screen now you're going to have a quick overview of Islam's fight stats and his perks. And throughout the gameplay here you'll have about 4-5 different gameplay clips. The video will be about 30 minutes long, so there'll be a lot to go through, a lot of gameplay to show you guys really what Islam can do online. And quickly just talk about his main attributes. So of course he's a 4-star fighter. Grappling's going to be his strong suit, and he's got 95 takedowns, 95 top control, 92 bottom control, 94 submissions, 94 submission defense, 93 ground striking, clinch striking of 92, and clinch control of 94. And as you can see, for a 4-star fighter, that's incredibly good stats, and it represents well how good he is in real life. Of course, we know that in real life he's just been extremely dominant at the moment, getting submission finishes. And the main difference between him and Khabib is that Khabib goes for ground and pound quite viciously and quite ferociously and really looks to batter his opponents that way, whereas it seems that Islam will often favour the position over damage, and then he'll look for a submission finish, as he did with Dan Hooker with the beautiful Kimura. And one thing that I noticed is that I struggled with Islam is to find fights, because as soon as you pick him, people often counter with picking Khabib, and I didn't really want to showcase gameplay against me fighting Khabib just because the fight wouldn't happen in real life. Obviously Khabib coaches Islam, they're like brothers, and it's just not very realistic. But in the first gameplay here we are going to be coming up against the Khabib, just to show you that how good Islam is in the comparison to Khabib. As you can see, we're denying the transitions here, and we're just going through the motions on the ground. But to quickly touch on his stand-up, which I do feel isn't the best compared to some of the elite fighters in the division. Of course, you've got the Dustin Poiriers, Justin Gaethjes, the Conor McGregors, even probably Charles Oliveira will have better stand-up. He's got a 92 punch speed and 89 punch power, which is relatively okay. It's good that he's a southpaw as well. Provides a different look for your opponents. Obviously there's quite good southpaws in the lightweight division. Obviously you've got Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, but the two main concerns with Islam is his recovery, which is only an 89. So when you do get rocked, you don't recover the quickest, and his leg health is only at an 88. So when you put that into contrast, we're looking at the other elite fighters in the division, people like Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje have extremely hard leg kicks. Even RDA and Edson Barboza, coming up against those guys, it's going to be quite hard, because if they really target your legs and attack your legs, you could have quite a difficult fight on your hands. You've really got to implement your grappling fairly early. And although he does have decent stand-up stats, you are going to look to only strike to set up your takedowns. You're not really going to stand and bang with your opponent unless they aren't the best on the feet. But one thing to note, which you will see in the gameplay clip here, I believe it's the first fight against the Khabib, is that I always say this: when you're using a wrestler, if you throw a head kick here and there, it really catches your opponent off guard, because they don't expect it, just because they don't have that skill set or that wide kicking range of Arsenal. So people don't really expect you to throw that head kick, and it catches your opponent out a lot, and it will get you a stun or a knockdown here or there. So it's a very important thing to use. But that first round there, you can see that it's extremely dominant first round. Although my opponent took me down, I'm very comfortable off the ground with Islam, just because he has a wide range of submissions. His bottom control was really good, and as you can see, it was very hard for my opponent to move into more dominant positions. When he did try to, he would get reversed. And in round 2 here, we're just sort of wanting to build off of how good round 1 was in terms of control time and position over damage and submission. But we will look to get the Khabib out of here. And on the feet right now, flowing quite well, even though we're in the orthodox stance. Of course, Islam fights out of southpaw, and like I said, it's really good, gives you a different look on things. My opponent takes me down again here, and that's of course inevitable. Even though he has 94 takedown defense, Khabib's takedowns are incredible just because of how dominant he is. But here, like I said, my opponent tries to get in a more dominant position, which we reverse, and then he reverses up again. So the grappling exchanges here have been pretty good with my opponent. He's of course looking to grapple as well, just because he's using Khabib. And quickly, while we're here, to talk about the sort of best counters to an Islam Makhachev would be Charles Oliveira, just because of how good he is off his back. And obviously you're going to want to look to be on top, so if your opponent's comfortable with being on his back, then it is a tough matchup. You've of course got Tony Ferguson, it will also be a tough matchup. And in my opinion, the two toughest matchups will be Justin Gaethje, because those leg kicks are going to rip you and he's got good anti-wrestling, and Dustin Poirier, who's extremely well balanced everywhere and also got very good leg kicks. And of course people will pick Khabib just to try counter you, so you don't, to deter you from going to the ground, or just because obviously Khabib will have better stats on the ground, so they think they're more likely to dominate you with Khabib than any other fighter. And that was a common theme throughout me trying to get the gameplay. Either people would just rage quit or they would go straight for Khabib. And I didn't want to show too much gameplay of me just fighting Khabib, so I thought I'd throw in this one here. And as you can see, just controlling my opponent, not looking to do too much damage through ground and pound. Although Islam does have good ground and pound, and you will see that showcased throughout the other gameplay clips. And here's some ground and pound right now. And I'm being very calculated with how I throw it, because I don't want my opponent to end up reversing my position. I'm being very calm and I'm picking my strikes, and like I said, there we had the opportunity to progress to half guard, so that's exactly what we done. Rather than going for the ground and pound, we just progressed, and my opponent does a good job here of reversing the position. And in full guard, just because of how good Islam is, I'm not worried about being off my back. He's got a wide range of submissions, and that's one thing that I think makes him very, very deadly, is that no matter where you go, it seems like he has a submission that you can finish the fight with. I think he also has his leg locks are pretty good, and obviously on the feet his best punch is going to be the hook. I like that he's got the wrestling sweeps and the jiu-jitsu sweeps. I think on the ground the most important thing is when you're in that full guard position and you're trying to advance, if you have the sweep that gets you straight into side control, I think that's an extremely important sweep, and Islam does have that. I think that's showcased in the last fight. And of course Islam has all the wrestling reversals, which is very important. As you see there, we're exchanging now on my opponent at the start of round 3. I think we've had 2 very dominant rounds, so it should be 2 rounds on the judges' scorecards. And I'm throwing leg kicks here and there, but one thing to note is when you are using Islam, if you are a dominant leg kick player like I am, if your opponent starts checking your leg kicks, you've just got to stop throwing them almost instantly, just because of that leg health. You can't risk getting that more compromised than it is already, because even if you do end up trying to shoot takedowns, if your opponent times a good leg kick, it can cancel the takedown, and that will just start getting easy stuns or knockdowns. And as you can see, the chin health and recovery there was tested by Khabib. Obviously my opponent got the stun. We recovered fairly well, but obviously Khabib isn't the fastest a puncher. He does have power, but my opponent wasn't able to press. We clinch up there looking for the takedown, which we don't get. And right now I'm fairly comfortable on the feet against my opponent, although he's got the stun. Obviously we got the knockdown, as you can see, mixing in the leg kick there. Now I'm just being patient, and as you can see I'm throwing a lot of hooks, because that is Islam's 4-star punch, is the hooks. So it's definitely his best punch, and that's something you're going to have to look to sneak in. And as you can see, it does have power, because it's dropped the beam now. I think it's dropped it now twice. And again, as you can see, I'm really going for that hook, and the finish should be coming shortly, just because the way my opponent's looking to stand. As you can see, get another stun there, and then a beautiful hook knockout. So going into the next fight here, we're coming up against a Max Holloway, and this is of course when the division's reset, it's restarted, which is why we are in a lower division. But coming up against the Max Holloway lightweight isn't the most common thing, just because obviously he's a lot better at featherweight, but my opponent chose to go with Max here. Obviously Max is going to be a volume puncher. He's got great stats, especially when it comes to the stand-up skill set. Level 4 this and level 4 jabs, and he's just extremely hard to fight against, especially if your opponent puts on a very good pace, and he can sort of drown you. If you don't work Max's stamina, you're going to have big problems. You can see my opponent's already trying to put a lot of pressure on me. We shot a takedown, which has done a good job of denying. And one thing you can do well with Islam is you can chain wrestle. So As you can see here, we get the takedown, but what I'm on about is if you shoot a regular takedown and your opponent sprawls and they sprawl against the fence, then you instantly go up and then work their back. I feel like Islam does that very well, and I use a lot of grapplers. I am a grappler. I don't like to stand too much, and there's something about Islam. I don't know if it's his top control stat of 95, but when you get your opponent onto the ground, they seem to just drown. They struggle, and in comparison, if you look at Prime GSP, his top control is a 98. So Islam's stats are very, very good, especially for a 4-star fighter. If he wins one more fight, then we can see really where his stats can go. Because right now, he's a huge problem to come up against, and your only real route to victory is to keep the fight standing. You're going to want to really look to isolate Islam's legs. So as an Islam player, you're going to have to look to protect your legs at all costs and really look to get the fight to the ground as soon as possible. And that will be your best route to victory, of course. And like I said, wide range of submissions. He's got excellent ground and pound as well. So it depends on how you are as a grappler. I always prefer to go for submission finishes and look to control my opponent. Whereas I know there's some grapplers that just want a Khabib style, Hamzat style, just smash you and get you out of there. But like I said, as you can see from the gameplay here, just controlling my opponent, throwing off these elbows, doing a little bit of head damage and really wearing down my opponent. And those elbows to the head, when you get on the feet, your opponent's head health is going to be compromised, and that's why I sort of maintain the control here from side control, and I'm always throwing elbows. I rarely ever throw the knees to the bodies unless that my opponent has too much stamina and I just want to wear out his gas tanks. When we get on the feet, it's a bit easier. But like I said, we're just transitioning from full guard to half guard, posturing up here, doing a bit of ground and pound, and here I'm really trying to mix in the ground and pound and submission attempts. So when I do have the opportunity to posture up, as you can see, I am doing so, and I am looking to get my opponent some damage done. I'm not looking to get him out of there per se, but I'm looking to damage that block and damage my opponent's chin health here. So another extremely dominant round, and this is exactly what your fight should look like when you're using Islam. There shouldn't really be a moment where you're getting outclassed or outdominated, because that's not what we've seen in real life. Yes, he's had that one knockout loss that, you know, was extremely lucky from his opponent, but ever since then he's just been extremely dominant, and it doesn't look like that's going to change. I do believe he'll probably be the future champion. I'm not sure who will be fighting for the belt, whether it's Charles, Dustin or Justin Gaethje. But if I had to make a prediction, he probably will fight Justin Gaethje for the belt. I reckon they'll make him have one more fight before he fights for the title, and by then maybe Justin Gaethje will have the belt in his hands, and that would be an extremely entertaining fight. Obviously we saw what happened when Khabib fought him, and we can see if it will differ from how when Islam fights him. But as you can see, I'm trying to work in the leg kicks just because Max has really good cardio, and my opponent will then therefore have the ability to just sway left and right constantly. So by throwing out that leg kick when they're swaying, it sort of cancels them in that motion here. But my opponent's come out a lot more aggressive this round, of course, just because he got dominated the last round. But as you see, I'm being patient, checking those leg kicks, which I can't stress how important it is, because you will come up against the Justin Gaethjes in this division, especially after that big win he had against Michael Chandler. And we will have some gameplay against both Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira coming up. But as you can see, I'm being very patient. I'm not really rushing in for the takedown. And the one difference between how I use him and Khabib is with Khabib I can really force and rush a takedown, whereas with Islam, just because of his recovery stats, I'm not too eager in shooting in and getting hit with a knee or an uppercut, a front kick, something that could really do damage, just because his recovery isn't the best. But as you can see there, we chain wrestled, we shot the takedown, my opponent denied it, and that takedown would have ended up with me going into full guard. And because my opponent denied it, we then took him to the fence and dragged him down, and we ended up into side control. So by my opponent denying the takedown, we ended up getting into a more advantageous position. And like I said, my opponent's throwing strikes here with the hand that should be grabbing the neck, so it's allowing for an easy posture up. I'm just looking to deny the transitions, get into side control. And as you can see, my opponent's stamina is slowly starting to fade. Get the deny here, and I normally go for submissions when I see my opponent's stamina is really, really low, or I do it as a measure just to waste time and get the round through with. And it normally takes about 50 seconds to a minute to lock in a submission. As you can see, I'm watching the time here. I see I've got 54 seconds left, so I shoot for a submission, and my opponent's stamina isn't in the best position. We chain it to the armbar, and this submission is by far the best submission in the game. I think it's the most effective across all fighters. If they have the option of the Kimura into the armbar, it's extremely, extremely powerful. And we're going to get the submission finish here against the first Max Holloway player. And in the next gameplay clip here, we're coming up against another Max Holloway. And this is extremely rare, but as you can see, this opponent has been in Division 20. So, obviously knows what he's doing, a very skilled opponent. And this is the opponents where you can really test yourself and see how good you are and how good I am with Islam. So I was really looking forward to this fight and seeing how I do against this opponent. Early on we get the takedown here, and I got the takedown in the middle of the octagon, which is quite important because my opponent therefore can't use the cage just to walk his way up. And although I do like using the cage because you can then just drag your opponent back to the ground if you're facing someone that is good at the game and knows how to deny those, it can be extremely hard and you'll just find yourself wasting a lot of stamina. But as the fights have progressed, as the gameplay clips have got on, you can see that I'm starting to become more comfortable using Islam here. I'm posturing up, I'm throwing a lot more ground and pound. And like I said, the ground and pound isn't to get my opponent out of the fight, it's not to finish him. It's normally just to either hinder my opponent's block, work away his chin health, or look into just advance into a more advantageous position. And we're doing a great job of denying throughout these fights. Like I said, the top controllers at the 95, it's really, really easy to control your opponent. And by the time my opponent gets me into full guard, the stamina difference is enough for me to always just advance into half guard. So, like I said, it's why it's extremely important to really grind on your opponent. And here you can see I'm being very selective with the strikes I'm throwing, not rushing anything, because you don't want to get reversed. And of course I'm coming up against the Max Holloway, so the threat that Max has off his back isn't high, so I can sort of unload more stamina into these ground and pound attempts. And you've just really got to know who you're coming up against to know your opponent, because if I'm coming up against the Charles Oliveira and Tony Ferguson, someone with very good submissions, I might not choose to unload the way I'm unloading here, because there's more of a threat of a submission from a Kimura there from half guard, or them getting me into full guard, into rubber guard, and there's just more threats. So when you're coming up against a Max Holloway or someone that's purely a stand-up fight, if you're coming up against a Conor McGregor, you can sort of unload the gas tank more and not really have to worry about getting finished or reversed. But like I said, it depends on the player you're facing, because you'll see that we will come up against the Charles Oliveira and you'll see how I deal with my opponent. But here, like I said, we're really just controlling, dominating my opponent and making it a very uncomfortable fight, not letting my opponent implement the game plan that maybe he wanted to, and being extremely patient. I'm not in a rush to do anything. As you can see, my opponent's made his way to the cage now. We take my opponent's back, and my opponent does a great job of denying that turning takedown here. So we've got 30 seconds to go. Majority of the fight's been on the ground, and that's exactly how you want to start off the fight. And as you see, I'm being very patient, very cautious, moving my head, sneaking a leg kick there, floating in and out of the ranges, because there's only 7 seconds left. I don't really want to get hit with anything unnecessary. And coming into round 2, we're just going to build off exactly what we've done in round 1, and we've laid the foundation for how to finish the fight. We've dominated my opponent. As you can see, there's a slight stamina difference, and with Max it's important to establish that stamina difference early on, just because how good Max's stamina is. He can just throw for days non-stop, and my opponent's trying to work my body there, which is something we've noticed. He hasn't mixed in the leg kicks yet, and like I said, Islam's legs is going to be his real weakness. Shoot, a beautiful head kick there, and this is exactly what I was on about, is that, you know, you can stand with Islam. Of course, against the elite strikers in the division, you're going to have a harder time standing. It's by no means impossible, but sneaking in those head kicks where you can really catches your opponents off guard. And I've snuck it in twice now in the Khabib fight and now in the Max Holloway fight, and as you can see, Every time it's landed, it's at least produced a stun. We take my opponent's back here, beautiful trip, but unfortunately we really emptied the gas tank going in for that one. And then I think my opponent ends up getting into my full guard here. So my opponent's done a good job there, but that was a beautiful, beautiful trip, and it's stuff like that you're going to really want to implement when using Islam. I saw my opponent was going for the spinning kick. If you time the takedown right, you'll end up taking your opponent's back. And being on your opponent's back is an extremely, extremely dangerous position because you can go for a wide range of takedowns with Islam. And as you can see here, I was just being patient, seeing what my opponent wanted to do. I think what my opponent was trying to do there was just stay in my full guard and wait for the referee to stand up. He didn't want to get his transitions denied. So, unfortunately for him, that didn't work out well. And right now, as you can see, we're in half guard again, throwing a lot of strikes. And I'm just looking to get to side control here. We get to side control, and I think here my opponent just quits. And yeah, this was a common theme throughout trying to use Islam, is that you're having a great fight, and then your opponents will just quit as soon as you get them onto the ground again because they just can't be bothered to deal with it. And now we're coming up against the Justin Gaethje, who straight off the bat is throwing leg kicks, and that's exactly what my opponent needs to do. Whenever you're using Justin Gaethje, that's exactly what you've got to do. It doesn't matter just because it's against Islam, because Justin's leg kicks are just so powerful. But as you can see, we're starting to check them. We've checked 2 already, so he's thrown 3, one's land, and we've checked the other. Shoot for a takedown. He's done a great job of denying. And this right here, it's going to be one of your hardest matchups, is against Justin Gaethje. So when I get him to the ground, I really can't look to let Justin up. I've really got to look to implement good control or really finish the fight. And as you can see, really working my legs already, doing exactly what he needs to do. And with Justin, you know he's going to throw the leg kicks. We get another check here and then go for the head kick. And sneaking in that head kick, again, like I said, a lot of people don't expect it. You throw it every now and then, it really catches your opponent off guard. 2 deniers here, and we've already done a good amount of we've checked the leg kicks well enough to damage my opponent's legs, so hopefully when we get onto the feet, it really puts my opponent off of throwing them. And that's what you've got to do when you're facing someone that's leg kick heavy, is that you've got to check them enough to the point where they don't want to throw them, and it's hindering them more than it's helping them. So right now we've got Justin in a terrible position. We're now into side control. Get the denier there. Stamina's quite low for my opponent. Another denier. Go for the Kimura here. And this is how easy it can be when using when using Islam. And this is against Justin, who's got good submission defense, and he's one of the hardest fighters to fight against for an Islam, just stylistically. And as you can see, I opted not to chain for the armbar, because if I did, the armbar probably would have been finished by now and would have won the fight. But I opted for the Kimura just because he finished Dan Hooker with the Kimura, so I thought, why not throw that in? So we finished Justin Gaethje there with a beautiful Kimura. And now coming into the Charles Oliveira fight, and we're coming up against an opponent that's been in the Division 20. And there's a lot of ways you can use Charles Oliveira. Obviously, stand up is quite good. You can technically strike with Charles Oliveira. He's technically sound. You can obviously look to grapple, which is what a lot of people do. But Charles Oliveira has a lot of the spinning back fists, and then he has the jumping front kick, flying knee, and depending on who you're facing, they might try to cheese you with those things here. And so as you can see already, my opponent's putting on quite a good pace, which is exactly what he needs to do, sort of have me on the back foot here. And if you're coming up against an Islam, you're obviously going to want to target the legs and probably put him on the back foot. Do a beautiful dodge there away from that head kick. So good movement there, just showcasing how good Islam is getting away. But my opponent here is just throwing spinning elbows, flying knees. He's looking for that fancy kick. We're dodging it at the moment, and then we'll rip into the body, try to sneak in the head kick there. And I'm just being calm. I don't want to rush into anything because I can see he's throwing all this unorthodox spinning stuff. It reminds me of a Tony Ferguson player right now. And on the feet, he isn't doing too much damage. So at the moment, I'm pretty content with staying here, but I need the fight onto the ground realistically as soon as possible. There's about 2 minutes 50 seconds left, and I want to rack up some control time, shoot for the takedown, turn it, and get my opponent onto the ground here. And now, facing Charles Oliveira, who's probably got the best jiu-jitsu in the division. You've got to be extremely careful, but you've just got to look to control the position, like I said, not empty the gas tank and not leave yourself open to submission, and know what submissions your opponent does have. So from here, Charles Oliveira will have the DAS, which will be, I'll have to deny R2 to the right. So that's something I'm keeping in mind. But as you can see, fairly early on, just because of the volume of strikes my opponent's been throwing and the fact they've been spinning attacks and the work I've done to the body, there's already a slight stamina difference, which is very good because going into round 2, and that's something I can look to capitalise on. And now the fight's got back to its feet, I'm just looking not to take any unnecessary damage because, like I said, recovery and head health isn't the greatest, and my opponent's pretty persistent on throwing those spinning attacks, really wants to get me out of there with those. So you've just got to be careful. As you can see, I'm using the hand out to sort of back away in time, and I'm not trying to get caught by any of these. He's quite a cheesy style of playing. He's going to really look to block break with that spinning elbow, so I don't really want to be trapped against the corner. As you can see, we throw the hook there, and like I said, his hooks are extremely powerful. His best punch by far, and as of that, we've got a stun. So not only did we get the takedown this round and some control time, we also got the stun. We've done damage to his body, so it's been a very good round. And we shoot for the takedown here just with 20 seconds left, and we get the beautiful takedown straight into side control here. Obviously, not long left on the clock, but just another takedown on the books, and some little denials there just to break my opponent's morale. So coming into round 2, I know exactly what I've got to do. To be honest with you, I could probably finish the fight on the feet if I really wanted to, just because my opponent keeps throwing these spinning kicks and they're quite easy to avoid. But you can't let your ego get the better of you when you're using Islam. You know where the fight needs to go. The fight does need to go on the ground, so you can't get too comfortable because that's when you can get risk of getting knocked out. So I'm bearing that in mind. Is again using good movement there, reverse my opponent, and I wanted to walk in towards the cage, but for some reason I backed away. A lovely little dodge there, and we sort of got my opponent's timing down now. I know exactly what he's trying to do, and there's that head kick again that you can just sneak in. Beautiful work to the body there. And here I think my opponent was expecting me to go stack guard, so I waited to see where he was trying to go. He wasn't trying to move, so we get into side control here, and from that knockdown we've now got straight into side control. I was pre-denying that, but somehow my opponent still got it. And here I'm just remaining calm because I'm in his full guard, and obviously Oliveira has also got the rubber guard, which you deny the way the hand is on the back of the neck to stop him from getting into rubber guard. And I knew he was going to do that, so I was just pre-denying that. And we've just got to be very careful with how we manage stamina here. Obviously there he's throwing with the hand that's on the back of the neck, so it allows us an easy posture up. And I posture up, do a little bit of ground and pound, but like I said, managing the stamina. And his stamina right now is not in a good position. As you can see, it's starting to flash. We get him here, and I probably could have gone for the triangle armbar, but I was looking just to control a bit more, do a little bit more damage, and get into side control and probably look for the Kimura finish here. And my opponent's trying to get up. We posture up here, not to throw strikes, just to flip back straight into side control. I didn't want to throw too many strikes and get the position reversed, or my opponent can get that roly-poly where he gets out. We're back into side control, and this is the last position you want to be in. So when using Islam, for me, this is the best position to get your opponent in. I've spoke about in many videos how I feel like this is the best position to get the fight into. And from there, just look for the Kimura or ground and pound. And here we posture up. After I believe we denied this here, yeah, we posture up. My opponent's got no stamina, and then we use the sweep to get straight into side control. And this is a very important sweep to have on a grappler because it's extremely dominant. As you can see, we've got a minute left. Opponent no stamina. Like I said, I always use the minute mark to justify whether I should go for a submission finish. So that's been the Islam Makhachev fighter showcase today. Please let me know if you enjoyed this longer style of video. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time.